that people can hear what you're saying. Nobody's, right? But the recording is
Oh, it needs
going,
to start,
so
yeah.
I have to unmute
Got
for the recording to work.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna call the meeting to order and we'll do the invocation of the school first. Do you guys usually read it together here? Yeah, okay, let's do that.
This is our school. May peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here. Love of one another, love of our school, and love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house, so many hearts build a school.
Okay, now we'll go roll call of committee members. Whatever then.
Nicholson and Lee.
Trisha Apte or Tua filling in for Kristen with.
Jennifer Bryan.
Are you committee? or
And I am
you're just-
not on the committee.
Okay. Okay.
Support staff.
Okay, and do we have enough for quorum? We do, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Okay, public comment. Anybody here for public comment? I don't see anybody in Zoom. I don't see anybody in the room. Is our camera on?
No, there's no mic.
Well, that's the question. Let's see if I can do that.
Is it on Maggie's? It's hooked up to that one, right?
Yeah, right.
Because it has her picture, so I'm gonna.
Maybe it's you. Yeah, you said there's like. a light
Oh, yeah, right
here.
there. There. There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Ta-da.
I put the light on.
Yeah, but we're on. Okay. Cool. Okay, so seeing no public comment. We will go to. Agenda modification.
Yes, which we do not have the minutes from 3/7/24, so I would like to suggest as your staff member that you table the minutes from 3/7.
Okay. So yeah, move this, okay.
March 7th was our last meeting.
Mhm.
Wow.
Well, we formally proposed the location and then it went over to Chico Unified and there
Oh,
really
that's
was
right,
very
you're
little we
waiting.
could do
Got it.
at that point, so.
Okay. Any other agenda modifications? No. We don't need to approve or accept that, right? We just move on, or we just scratch it.
You just have to
Yes.
trail it
Yeah,
to the next meeting.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving to. So that was the consent agenda. So item 4, consent agenda, which was the minutes, which we pulled. So we don't have anything else on the consent agenda.
Right.
Okay. So nothing to approve. So moving to item 5. 5.1, executive
Okay.
director report.
So, current status of the property, we are in escrow right now for the property, and that is between Dan Gonzalez and the district. The district called me, a couple of weeks ago and said that the price that he is asking is above, the value, and asked me about negotiating for us, and I agreed to still set aside the 2.1 million, even if it ends up being less
So
than that.
sorry, who Chico Unified called you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if that's a negotiation now, probably that's all I should say.
Yeah.
Not a closed meeting. So they're in negotiation, but our escrow is still due to end August 15th.
Yeah.
Um,
and the value was based on an appraisal that was done, or do we know?
no, it was his asking price.
Well, but like how there's determining it's above market value?
It's because of appraisal.
Okay,
Yeah.
because of appraisal. Okay. Okay.
So that's where that is. We come out of that on the 15th of August. And so, the funding, there's in your packet, the, funding descriptions that Annie gave us a while back when we were talking about it. we have they've changed their name. They used to be, it's the organization we last talked to about funding that would do the whole thing for us. They are looking at that we would need an additional 7 to 9 million to do the site. Even, so just talking to them about it briefly, but they're preparing to present to the board at the next board meeting on the 16th. About what they might be able to do. The other two options are tax-free bonds and a direct loan from a local organization. Annie is suggesting the third because of its flexibility. And, if you buy bonds, then you're paying them for 40 years. Whereas there's more flexibility with local funding, and she was recommending that what we need might work out. But in the meantime, I'm looking at Capelli, I think they are, who we talked to before about long-term tax or the tax bonds. And then I know you reached out to Golden Valley, it was too big. So I'll probably reach out to Umpqua because
Yeah.
they're small and local enough that they might be interested in the project, but not in the Bank of Americas of the world that we
Yeah.
would be too small
More
for.
of a
So
community.
I'm gonna look at those three options, and that'll happen at the
Charter.
finance committee and the charter
Okay.
meeting.
And so the additional funding that we're thinking is between that 7 to 9
Yeah.
that
And
we would
then,
need for a loan.
yeah, and then of course, what other bond issue monies that we might be able to get
From the district.
from the district.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it is. So any questions on any of that?
And well, I guess I don't understand the tax-free bonds very much. Do you know anything about them?
I know,
Enlighten me about.
I can.
You guys know anything? Okay.
So when like the district is going out for a bond
Yeah.
issue, what they do is they get approval to sell bonds
Mhm.
and then
To investors.
to
kind of.
investors.
Okay.
And the reason, so that's what school districts often do. It's
Mhm.
the same thing, as opposed to an increase in taxes, which is like what the county is now doing to increase the sales tax or
Mhm,
something.
mhm.
And they charge you on your tax. This is a bond issue, so they get approval based on all sorts of things. They get approval for the amount that the local
Projects
area
for, yeah.
projects for, and then they sell those bonds. So what we're doing is a little different in that the district goes to the district people and asks if it's okay. We don't have that step. We can just sell bonds to anybody who wants to buy them. It doesn't have to be within. We can just say, we're gonna do this. Nobody has to vote on it. We get to do it if we want to. It's
Mhm.
different. So, but then you go out to the world as a whole and you say, okay, we've got bonds to sell. You want to buy them?
Yeah.
And then assuming they're purchased, and that becomes our pot of money to use. And then we would pay those, that would be a consistent payoff rate for 30 to 40 years.
Got it.
So
Okay.
is that, and then the tax-free piece is the fact that the investor doesn't have to pay taxes on the income.
Got it.
That's why it's
Because
tax,
of what the
because-
bond is for.
because they're paying to build a school.
Yeah.
Then it can be tax-free to the
Okay.
investor.
Okay.
So,
So we don't have to qualify for funding for that 7 to 9 million.
million. Well, what they'll do is look at what we can afford.
Mhm.
But still, it's felt that we can afford that amount, partially because of the amount that we're already paying for rent.
Okay,
So we will have to qualify like on a local funding source, but maybe not on the bonds as much.
Well, so
That
the guy
qualify
that sells the bonds is gonna look at whether or not he thinks we can pay that off.
too. So either
And
way, we're gonna. have
If
to
he's gonna
qualify.
say, you're not gonna be able to afford this, then he's not gonna sell the bonds.
Yeah,
That would
Got
be
it.
irresponsible.
and
Okay.
as far as like price goes, like are the bonds a lower interest rate for us, so it would be a lower payment versus,
It is a lower interest rate because
Yeah.
it's tax-free bonds.
yeah.
Tax-free bonds
And-
are a lower interest rate.
And so I guess if it's a lower interest rate, therefore, and it's a lower payment, I guess why would we choose to go with a local funding source that's more expensive?
That's a question that we would need to look at. The one is the flexibility of being able to pay it off earlier
If you wanted to.
if we wanted to.
So on the tax-free bonds, it's just you have.
It's
probably
pretty
a
hard.
Prepayment.
Yeah,
penalties
mhm,
that you need.
yeah.
Okay,
So it's
So we're
it's
gonna
those,
look at
that kind of flexibility.
both options.
Yeah.
And finance committee's gonna do that
Yes.
part.
Mhm,
Are the qualifying factors the same?
mhm. Pretty much. Everybody wants to know if we can pay it.
Yep.
Pay it off. That's what they
I was wondering.
care about is are we able to pay our bills? That's mainly the thing.
But our cash on hand is higher. Which is what Annie said we needed to be able to
Yeah.
go out and qualify, so we did
It's
end,
extra qualifying.
we did
Mhm.
end that way with a good amount of cash, like
Mhm.
60 something days cash on hand, so that does
Mhm.
help, I know Annie said when we go out to qualify.
Mhm,
So it's kind of what they're looking for, they want us to have a minimum of that, like 60 days, right?
mhm. Right.
So we had the liquidity to purchase the land, and now we're looking at funding for building. Is that where we're at? Okay.
We use the Measure K,
We
which
use
is the
Measure K.
land that we've been saving.
And we still have money in the Measure K.
Mhm.
And then the district is also going out in November for another bond issue.
That's what I was gonna
Which could
ask you
help us,
about,
which
when
would
is
help.
that to be put on?
We'll be on the
on
November
the-
ballot.
That
their
will be,
agenda.
I'm speaking very carefully because I cannot promote this, so I'm just
Yeah.
giving you information.
Yeah.
It goes it's on the November ballot.
What was said about Golden Valley? We tried that?
I talked to them and I will follow up with them. Cause that's our bank and I do stuff with them. And he thought it was too big of a project for them. Tyler is who I use my loan officer over there.
You know, Mitch?
No, no. So, but I think we should check in with them again and see. I was just tentatively being like, what are the interest rates? Like trying to gather some information from him. So, but yeah,
I would find it worse.
yeah, so.
And so is this, am I understanding this correct? So on possibly in November for that November ballot, it would be Chico Unified School District would be deciding on, was it the charter bond? Is it a bond? Or was it,
Chico Unified School District, the board is
Mhm.
asking the public within the district
Mhm.
to vote to issue new bonds,
yeah,
additional bonds, 269 million.
yeah,
So that they can invest in facilities.
yeah,
15% of that, because of enrollment in charters, will go to charter schools,
mhm.
which is about 25 million, I think, overall.
Okay.
And
What was
so
they gonna
the-
be first tested?
Yeah, so if it goes that way, we'll have 900,000 that will be designated to us and another 17 million that we could apply to use.
So I guess I'm kind of wondering if that November ballot, if that goes through for us, will there be a need for us to have those bonds, or do we, you know, for the 7 to 9 million? Or is that something we're just using as like a backup? Just if it does go through, then we can pay off whatever bonds that we took out.
And we
that-
can't do that with a
Yeah.
bond issue. So
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of all of everything you're thinking is possible that we could wait until the bonds are available and go for that instead. We do have funding specifically for facilities that we would then lose. So
Oh,
part of the
gotcha.
question is, do we want to lose that or do we want to have more money to do it at school? So.
Yeah.
So I think that it goes like for the election, right? And then the public will, depending on how the vote goes, will decide on whether that gets approved. And then after that gets approved, then we would still have to apply for that money for
Gotcha.
facilities. And then if that gets approved, so I don't know how long it would be from November to when we could apply to when we would know.
And when
Yeah.
we would actually get the money, because then the school district goes out to sell their bonds. So November happens. Then they
just didn't
start to do
know
the
if,
work then.
Like, so if let's say we reached out to UMPA and we're able to get, you know, let's say we're able to get the 7 to 9 million. in bonds.
Hmm.
And this gets approved, let's say that it does get approved in November. Are we gonna be able to use part of that funding to pay that back, since that would be money that we would still be using for facilities, so that we're not.
I do not believe we can use the bond funds to pay off debt.
Yeah.
The other bond, even though the funds would be solely used for
Yeah.
facility?
Right, no,
Oh,
you cannot use bond funds to pay off debt.
So the way,
So, but, I
yeah.
mean, I wish, and so does Forest Ranch, because they're like, they could have used their measure fund, they got borrowed money and then Measure K came through and they couldn't use the
Yeah.
Measure K because I'd already spent their money on,
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that stuff happens.
Gotcha.
So this is all for us. We'll put that in, for this committee, we'll put that into the realm of the finance committee and the charter council, and do what we need to do in the meantime to keep this project moving forward, whether or not the bond issue. So that's where we are right now. We don't want to not do anything in hopes that the bond issue goes through. We're gonna say, okay, great if it happens for us, but we still need to plan the new
Yeah.
building because we need to get out of here.
Yeah, either way. we're gonna do it.
So,
How does that affect our timeline?
yeah, good question.
Like if we get if the bonds pass that Chico Unified's trying to do.
Well,
Or,
I'm hearing two pathways, and one's with the bonds and one's without, and so I'm just wondering where our timeline fits in on all that.
so, the big piece right now is to get the design going and know what we want, so, and get the contractors and the architect and so forth lined up to do that, and then, the discussions that I've been in with multiple people is, it'll take us about 9 months to build the building. So first we have to get the design plans approved and all of that piece first, so
yeah,
my hope is that this committee will move forward with, figuring out just, an architect and design and that sort of thing, whatever that takes to do, which is beyond my knowledge, though I'll figure it out if I need to. And so we can continue down the path. One of the things that Dan Gonzalez talked about at the time, and I don't think it's reasonable because of the way it played out with Chico Unified, but to have an architect and a plan ready to go. He said you could start building, we could start building right away if we had that. 2 people.
so the way, so finance committee talked about that a little bit, on our
Yeah.
this meeting, so
Mhm.
kind of the way we looked at it is we get SB 740, is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
you're right.
So SB 740 is what we get from the state for our rent, right? So, and we get that money to pay for our rent based on our ADA. So we don't necessarily want to let go of that money, so we need to have some amount of loan, whatever, and I have to do the math, and I don't have my notes in front of me, so if that's $300,000 a year, let's say, that we get from that, then we might as well get a loan, whatever that equals up to $300,000 in payments a year, right? So we know at
That's the
minimum,
thinking.
we should get a loan that's gonna cover that, because that's money we're already getting from the state. And we have some money for the Measure K funds, so if we move forward with the design aspect, which is gonna take some months, and then getting that approved with the city, while we're waiting to find out what happens on the
Yeah.
November ballot, then that, we have that money, we're not delaying the project while we're trying to figure that out. We have some money from Measure K to pay for the architect and the design, and we're gonna have to we don't have to, it would be in our best interest, it seems like financially, to get a loan for that amount, because that's money we already are getting from the state.
I think,
Does that help?
yeah, so to
Okay.
clarify, my question is, are we able to proceed with an architect without having our funding secured?
We have enough funding with Measure K to pay for design. We
Okay,
have
yeah.
1.5 million, I think, still. So that can be used towards design. So we currently have that funding in Measure K.
okay,
And because we don't have an architect or anything, I haven't been able to say to Mr. K, we need to set aside this amount of money for that. But they have
Yeah,
consistently approved that in the past, so I don't have a concern that the Measure K money would not be able to be used for that. I need to tell them what the bill's, the
Yeah.
estimate, I need to tell them the estimate in order to move that into that fund, but that's all.
Who did
So-
we, I know Buck and I think you were there, Susan, we were on a Zoom meeting with an architect and builder about 3 years ago. And I believe it was Charter Impact or Agassi.
It was
Oh,
Agassi.
it was
Yeah,
Agassi,
so
okay.
they've moved on, but then we also have, charter school fund or some, I can't remember the right name for it, Jennifer, I'm sorry. They're coming in, they're the ones that'll come in for the charter council meeting, and they have the same kind of setup. Where
Okay, because
they
they had
help
an
you fund
architect
yeah,
and
have
a
all the
general
planning.
on there, and
Yeah.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, so this other organization has the same sort of package, and so they'll be presenting it to the charter council,
Okay.
informational meeting. On the 16th.
Did we ever connect with whoever Cheryl Grant had for architect that did the other Waldorf?
No,
the
she
super-
just sent in, I just got an email from her like yesterday or something,
Mhm.
and that's, and I think it was sent to, no, I know it was sent to Buck and
I got
you.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, she was just like, I know you guys are on the committee, so I'm sending it to you. So she has a contact information for them.
Okay,
And then I also reached out today. I found Tim DeWitt, who I talked to back in 2019.
Oh,
And
good.
he came and,
Yeah.
he's the one who had children in the Waldorf schools. So I reached out, I emailed him today. I don't know that he's, in any way interested anymore.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, 5 years, but so those are the two, and really that's the next step for this group is like, how are we going to design this building?
Mhm.
And what is it? You've already done surveys of what
Mhm.
people want, and we've talked about that. So we should, I hope, have the amount of information we need collected from the community to get that started,
Mhm.
and then go back when we're ready for more details.
Yeah, and I think what's been on my mind regarding this design topic since our last meeting is that our last meeting, Karen was here and she was bringing a community schools focus, and that was when we thought we were going to have a lot of that funding, and we could have this and we could have this, and I guess I'm feeling cautious about how many new or different things we would be adding on versus just starting with kind of like the Waldorf basics and then moving forward when we get more funding. So that's just where I'm at right now.
That's a good question.
That's a good point, but I know that when we're moving to the new site, we want to have more students. So we also have to think on that scale of looking at, having double tracks, growing into that again, what that's gonna be like and how we can be able to host parent bodies or parents that are needing to have that kind of like family hub center to be able to, so that way we can have, the pantry again, or so that we can have parents that are from low income families being able to come in and get help and get resources, but also have that privacy factor, versus just having it be in just an open, communal area.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is I hear that, and there are a lot of ideal things in the Waldorf world as well. But my hope is that we focus on meeting the pedagogical needs
Yeah.
first, and to ensure that we do that, because that is what the teachers and the families who have come and now gone, it's been so long, right? But what they've really hoped for our school. And I think the Waldorf model itself is sustainable when it is actually implemented in its fullness. And we've done a great job here with what we have. But I think that if we're able to focus on meeting the pedagogical needs and fulfilling our mission statement and our not value, what's the other one? We have two things, right?
Mission, vision, and value.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to be transparent that that's going to be my voice at this committee. That, I know there's a lot of excitement about new initiatives, but I'm going to be the voice of the old world. And also having gone to other Waldorf schools already this summer for training and really seeing, without having a lot of funding, what is there and how is it used and how is it lasting for decades and aging well. So.
We're saying like not going in and blowing it out and giving everybody exactly what they want, like it costing millions of dollars, more so keep taking it easy, going in and then kind of expanding from there, make sure that we
Yes.
what we need from there.
Yes, I would not, yes, exactly.
Okay. I get it, that's a good one.
Yeah, I definitely understand that viewpoint. I also have to look at it as a parent body standpoint and looking at the fact that our school now, as a one track, we have over 50% that's low income. So we need to make sure that we are helping and providing for those families, because that is half of the school. And moving to another site, that's not gonna mean that that number is not gonna, we can't predict if that number is gonna go up or down. But right now, as it stands, that's half our school.
So I guess my question would be to clarify, because I haven't been at prior meetings, like what would it be? What would that look like? Like what do we currently not have, or what in the model, like Jennifer's kind of talking about, of meeting the pedagogical needs, like what would that not include?
Well, for instance, like the other Waldorf schools, most of them, people pay tuition for their kids to go. On average, most of them do. We're like the only free Waldorf charter school, right, that I know of.
Oh, no, there's
And
there's
it's a
dozens and dozens.
Well, but compared to the majority, like if you say, okay, here's all of the Waldorf schools, what percentage is free charters and what percentage is not? You see what I'm saying? So it's like they have more of this revenue coming in, from people that have more money because it's not a free charter school. So that's where I think that like having some kind of like family hub center, some kind of room for that, it seems like a no-brainer.
Community room, is that?
Yeah, something like
So
that.
that's what I was asking.
But like,
what is
as
it that you think
something
needs to
that's
happen?
not like, I'm trying to think of how it was put across on one of the last meetings where it was talked about as being kind of like a community hub, but also having privacy in the fact that if parents or families need to be, walked through something, to help out their family dynamics, that they have a space that's private to be able to go and,
Would that be like a conference room, or it needs to be bigger than that, or like an office with somebody that's having
Yeah,
a conversation?
I'm not
or-
sure.
Okay.
I just know that was something that was talked about, and knowing our statistics of our school, I just want to make sure that that's aligning, because that's a huge part of our, of our needs here
Yeah.
at the school.
So I think engaging and support, I mean, when you look at the Waldorf governance work that's
Mhm.
done, it's the threefold. We've talked about it at parent council, the parents, faculty and staff.
Yeah.
And the board, those are kind of the three. So what's you're talking about is how to support the parents. And what Jennifer's talking about is the concept as a whole. I don't think what you're talking about is not something that would be included in the Waldorf, pedagogy or the Waldorf plan. And I also want to make sure you understand there are about 40 Waldorf public charter schools, and we meet and work regularly within the community. I meet monthly with leaders from a lot of California ones, because we just happen to be that way. But so I meet regularly with them. We talk about a lot of the pedagogical and facilities and other issues there. So we do work as a team to develop that. And that inclusiveness of supporting families as a whole is a big part of it. Blue Oak has been at 58% low income for most of its existence. I don't know the first 5 years or so, but at least the last 10 to 15 has been. So it's always been an issue here. So I think that's why the community school work that we're still doing it fits. It's like this with what Blue Oak is already. It's like, it's not anything new. Other people, it's like, oh, this is a new concept. It's not a new concept to Blue Oak at all, because Waldorf, the whole education community is moving more towards Waldorf than the other way. They don't know it, but that's what they're doing.
I didn't know if the
Yeah.
other Waldorf schools had ratios like ours, and if they have, you know, the means, if it's in their pedagogy to be able to fulfill those needs of a 58th percentile of.
There are a
lower-income
few.
families. So
there-
I know that all the field trips that I've gone on with my kids' classes to go to other Waldorf schools, none of them were free Waldorf schools.
Right.
None of them were.
Right, because the
So,
ones that run
you know,
those
so
stuff.
I'm just speaking as a parent standpoint because that's what I do. And I want to make sure that we're reaching out everybody in our community.
Yeah.
And we will
Yeah.
hold you to sticking up for those parents.
Yeah.
You feel like we're not doing that.
I feel that I want to make sure that that is continuing to be looked at, not just the pedagogy of Waldorf itself, but making sure that those 58% of the families are making sure that knowing that they are a huge stakeholder, they hold over 50% of our school. So we need to make sure that we're reaching out and talking to them and fitting their needs and making sure
Yeah, and I
that
guess
moving
that was,
forward, that we're fitting their needs.
yeah, that
That's
was
it.
my question, like, what is it that we don't have here that you would like the new school that's going to meet those needs? Like, what is it, what is that thing?
Part of the planning process also.
Yeah.
We're not really planning right now.
Yeah, so, yeah, like thinking about whatever that thing is that is
Mhm.
going to help meet those parents' needs that we
Yeah.
don't currently have, but we make sure we incorporate them.
Well,
you know?
they're all in the.
A
all in
bigger,
the,
a bigger parent council closet, maybe?
Yeah. Okay, so
Bay
I,
door.
I think the big thing coming from like charter and finances, it's hard to plan financially, because we don't know what the building looks like, and because we don't have a design for the building, we can't get a cost of what it's going to cost us to build the building. So we're really stalled at a design.
And that's where
Yeah.
what I'm trying to articulate is everything's always going to cost 30% more and take 30% longer to do it. And
Yeah.
so I would hate for us to get caught up on ideals,
Mhm.
and I'd love for us to be realistic about our necessities. You know, and to you know, we are currently in a building that is perhaps a third or twice the size of what we're going to move into. So think of it that way. So what is it that, you know, like a lot has happened, especially even in the last 3 years, because we've been living fat on the calf with COVID funding, and our school has slowly been decreasing in classroom numbers. And so once there's an empty room, we turn it into something, and then it becomes a psychological dance, because once you have it, you can't imagine not having it, but you really have to think back, well, what are our basic needs? And
what can we
as
afford?
what can we afford? Because we can always increase enrollment in the future and build more, but to, you know,
Build and they will come is probably.
that's
a
just
straight
can't, that
financial
can't, what
plan.
I'm trying to say
Yeah.
is like, that was what we did coming into here. You know, like, we are gonna take this huge building and we're gonna fill it up, and that never happened. And it's just been heartache and stress every semester since then. So I want us to be sensible and meaningful and sustainable. And as those numbers rise, like, I could see us increasing more, or if huge
Expanding.
grants come in, you know, great. But I just want us, I want to see us this actually open this school and be able to deliver our education.
I appreciate that coming from the finance committee and budgeting, and so, because it is like, we have to be able to afford it, like, and it's exciting, and you can very much get carried away with all of the bells and whistles and the, right, expansion, but the goal is to have a space, I think, to, you know, that's affordable, that we can provide that education, you
As
know.
long as they have flat screens, everything's fine.
So, so I guess the next steps are, right, how do we start meeting with, like, what are the next steps as far as
Agenda
coming up with
cycle.
For what? Yeah, are we good? Are we good to move to that point, 5.2? Yeah, what are the building design next steps? Like them?
So I have one more thing to say on
Okay.
funding
Okay.
before we move forward. The concept and often in building a new building or a new site like this is stair steps, tearing it in. So we can design something and say, so here are the 5 buildings we would like. Here are the 2 that we're gonna build right now because they fit our current needs. And then, see if as funding comes available, other funding comes available, we could fundraise or bond issue or whatever to build more. But we want to say, we could possibly say, this is what we want the site to look at as a whole. And here's this wonderful outdoor theater that we would love to have. We're not going to build the outdoor theater right now because that's not what we can afford. We need to build the classrooms. So I think knowing that as we design it, to think about what's realistic and what might be realistic in the future. It might be 10 years down the road that they build an additional building or something, but to have it planned
I think it's a good
as a
point.
whole. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
then we have a couple people that you've reached out to and Cheryl sent, so are those our next steps? To try to get a meeting with them? Are they local or is it all over Zoom? Or-
So both of the architects, both the one that I talked or I emailed today and the one that Cheryl got the information to are from the Sacramento area.
Okay,
So it would be that kind of a meeting. And the other, the one that's coming is also zooming in
okay,
for the whole package
Yeah.
group that are zooming in. They're from Oregon. So
Okay.
it's all people at this point from out of the area. But that doesn't mean that we can't use people in the area. Those are just the ones, all 3 of those have charter backgrounds and 2 of them have Waldorf
Waldorf
backgrounds. But there are many other, as I'm looking at the site and people are talking to me, there's other people that have helped build schools. So it's not like these are the only people that can build schools.
so are
So
there people on the committee that are focused on like meeting, like I know you've been on the design part, right? Yeah.
In the past,
In the
but we
past.
haven't formed that task
For that.
force yet.
Like, is there a specific, so is it broken, and you guys have to, well, forgive me so much, because I'm just filling in today. So like, is there a certain, and I just wanna not lose any more time and wanna keep us moving forward, so. Is there people on the committee, is Susan the one making those first initial meetings, or is there people on the committee that are gonna take that on and schedule those meetings? Like, how is that moving forward, is my question.
I think there are 2 pieces going forward right now. One is to get an architect
Yep.
and start finding out who's available and
Yep.
who we like and
Who's
what that's going to
who's
cost.
doing those interviews?
And that was going to be the committee
Okay, as a
From-
whole,
as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I had talked to Christian about being someone reaching out to the architect, the possible architects or planners or whatever to do that. I know that Dan Gonzalez had said that he had somebody in mind. So
Okay.
if somebody knows him, they could ask him.
Okay.
So we can, because there might be somebody local. Right now, we don't have anybody local.
Okay.
And so that could be one person who could volunteer to do that. And then the other is actually, as we're talking about the actual, what is it we want from the beginning? What I've been using is something that Turner Impact Design, which really wasn't right for us, but it was like a
Mhm.
bottom line thing. So really, how many classrooms do we need?
Mhm.
How many
Yeah.
I mean, the bathrooms are probably right from them, but they had us having a cafeteria and I'm like, we don't have a cafeteria.
Mhm.
Do we need a cafeteria? No, but we do need a place to have big meetings.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, so what, so what is it that is like our step 1 of what we need?
Necessity.
And so we can say, and then we want, how big we want the classroom? They can be 900, they could be 1,000. We have those lovely, cloakrooms. So that makes that's the non-standard classroom. If we want to continue to have cloakrooms, we may want to have bigger classrooms, which is going to cost more money for the classrooms. But is that an important piece, is to have a cloakroom, or is a sink more important?
Mhm.
Which is more important, or are they both very important in 3rd grade? It's that sort of
Sure.
this thing that we're saying, here's the pedagogy and here's what we need the classrooms to support. We've talked about science in the upper grades and how important that is. Do we have a science lab? Do we have the ability to do science in each of the classrooms? Which is it? Those sorts of decisions to be able to present to the architect when he's planning, when we've said we need X number of classrooms, we need a kindergarten play yard that's this size. What is it we need? And that's
Okay.
really, that's what I need to not be doing this.
Okay,
Please.
Mhm.
I will
so
not do it. I will do it very fast and it will not be very good.
You mentioned an organization out of Oregon. Is that like for architectural or is that for funding?
It's both.
Both.
So
Okay, all encompassing.
that's the whole package kind of thing. So they design, build, and finance.
So is
that
it,
the one that was the charter something? or
It
another?
was Turner Agassi, Turner Impact,
was the
Turner
original
Agassi.
one?
That's the one we went with
Just like
initially, and then
charter school something.
this
yeah.
is, charter school capital or
Yeah.
growing charters, I think is what they are now. My brain is starting to kick in.
Okay, so is that whoever's coming up with those lists, like how big is the classrooms, how big those things, is that a subcommittee of this committee or is that this committee as a whole doing that?
I hope a subcommittee.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I would think a
so
subcommittee,
like probably like a teacher,
a parent.
facilities person, like, a mix of thoughts and we don't have a subcommittee. That was kind of what was put
Yeah,
together before, but then nothing ever moved that way, right?
Right, and
Okay.
it actually didn't.
So do we want to establish that tonight?
yes, please.
Yes, okay. So who wants to do that?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Okay, since you're only.
That's a motion.
Okay, yeah, so. You want me, somebody want to make a motion?
I think Jennifer just did.
Well, she said she would sign up for the subcommittee.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I will make the motion that we designate, set up a subcommittee of the facilities. Of a parent, a teacher, and a facilities, is that what the?
Parent, teacher,
somebody
and
is in
facilities.
Facilities?
Yeah, because it's you and Kat are both on this committee, right? Yeah.
Do we feel like we need more than three or more opinions than that, or does that give us a good?
I think 3 is good because then a plan can be formed more efficiently and then discussed
As a whole.
as a whole.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. Any further discussion, questions, concerns?
I think that having our community schools coordinator with her input would be giant, since she's the one that's put so much effort into surveying and talking to all of the parents.
Like
At our school.
doing that stuff.
So I think that she has a lot of valuable information.
Is
But she's
Karen
not
on this committee?
Right?
No, she's not on the committee, but
we can assign her as a staff member,
Yeah,
so she'd be sitting in my role.
I think that would be an important step moving forward.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it would be.
Okay. So, and then I'll amend it saying also having a staff member on that committee,
Not on the committee.
on the,
But
sub- on that.
No, I don't think they need
task
to-
force.
Like, well,
So
I-
that
so-
committee getting input from a staff member.
so I'm just gonna say that with 3, you have two staff members and a parent.
Yeah,
And so if you
So
go
an odd
to
number?
4,
Yeah.
number
Then
1, you
there's
don't have an odd
that
member.
majority.
okay,
Yeah,
And then you have 3 staff members and 1 parent, and that
yeah, okay.
feels out of balance to me.
yeah.
I think that I feel like when I come to the meetings, I have a lot of influence on what you do.
Yeah,
And Karen could also have that kind of influence.
so we'll keep
Making sure we go that
keep
direction.
that task force at 3.
At 3, and then, and I will note that Nicole requested that Karen
Give
staff the
some
meeting
input.
to be able to support,
Yeah. It would-
with her understanding,
it would be
which
Very valuable.
which is very much within her role and with relieve me. I'm having to, so that's good.
Okay.
For me, all right,
Any other questions? Sorry, other people are getting evacuated.
no, no.
Any other questions or comments before we go for a vote? Okay, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Governor Stein.
Trisha, I.
Jennifer Ryan, I.
Cool. So now that we have that as a motion, do we want to assign people to those spots?
I think so.
So I would nominate Jennifer. To be the
Yes,
teacher's
please.
Beth, are you, have any interest, or do we need to talk to Kat, or, I mean, I feel like you would have a valuable opinion about it.
I'm just, swamped, but, yeah, I can do it.
Should I nominate Beth to hold the facilities seat?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll take it.
Parents interested in the seat?
James and Kristen both communicated interests last
Okay.
week, but they're not here. I don't want to speak for them.
Yeah, so if you guys don't have a strong interest, we could reach out to them before signing, that's good,
I would say do that, since I do have a lot of
yeah, other
commitments.
Okay,
Good for you,
I
Nicole.
think
I was
that's fair.
biting my tongue like, Nicole, don't you offer?
okay, so I'll make a motion to appoint Jennifer as teacher. Beth as
And who's
facilities.
James and who was the other one?
Well,
Kristen.
also, now I'm looking at Wendy's name. She's probably gonna want that too.
And then we will reach
I
out
know.
to everybody, all the parents on the committee, and ask them if they have interest in doing it.
Yeah, I think that's
Is that good?
good,
Okay.
moving forward.
Anybody want to second my motion?
I will, yeah,
Okay,
I was gonna say, we never second the motion.
we did the other one. Yeah, yeah. I did the second one.
Well, you haven't, yeah, you suggested the appointment of Jennifer and Buck
Yeah,
and to reach out to parents. for the
that's
other-
my motion.
So that's her motion.
And
So we need a second.
you're gonna second, Renee's gonna second. Okay,
Okay.
any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, go for the vote, Nicole. This is my side to start on,
Thank
sorry.
you. That's
This is
okay.
routine. Okay.
I, Nicole.
I'll go inside.
Trisha, I.
Jennifer Bryan, I.
Cool. So you guys wanna, set a meeting day, or you three of you will, whoever the parent is, coordinate that afterwards?
I think we need to find out who the parent is.
Yeah. And then the goal would be to meet before the next facilities
Mhm.
meeting probably,
And that's after Kristen reaches out,
to see who the parent is.
no, to see who the architects are.
Well, I think I think they can work. And
Oh, you're saying our meeting, I now
Yeah, like
understand.
your
Yeah, yeah,
little
yeah.
task force meet, because those can work simultaneously while we're interviewing architects, we're coming up with an idea of what we're gonna tell the architect once we hire that architect.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah,
Okay.
you got it.
Okay,
Are we gonna schedule our first meeting on like August 1st, Thursday? And before we did the
oh,
first
because you don't have a
Thursday
standing.
of
That's
each month,
Yeah,
that was our previous rhythm.
Was the first two.
with his
First
first
Thursday.
Thursday.
Man, that's totally awesome to do for them.
I know.
Okay,
I would suggest that for August 1st, because it'll be before school starts. You can
Right?
at least establish it and be hopeful that it will happen. It's hard that time of year, but yeah, just so we don't drop the ball.
is everybody that's here in town as far as I know, August first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully teaching summer school. Crossing fingers.
So
And this is.
August first at
Yeah,
6 p.m., right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so then the other thing that we need to establish is who's gonna reach out to architects to start gathering possibilities. Do we want that to be a task force as well, or just one person
I haven't noted here that Kristen was reaching
was
out.
going to?
Okay.
I was going to suggest her as the chair, but I can confer with her, and if she needs help, I can help her. But I know her and I have met separately between finance and facilities. to kind of-
That's a tough one because I'm sure everyone knows someone.
Well, I think if anybody knows anybody, they should send it
Should
to the person that's reaching out, and then they can reach out, gather information, and then they need to bring it back to facilities. And then decide who you're going to interview. Maybe you have a couple people then on a call with them or meet with them to interview them.
I'd rather that. I'd rather one person handle it. Everybody
Yeah.
goes, everybody phones like,
Yeah.
okay, information to them.
To them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
think
my
that's a good
feeling
plan.
also.
Yeah.
What comes to my mind though is what are a list of questions
Yeah.
for the architect?
So we're asking the
Before
same.
we do an interview, yeah, to
Okay.
see who it is we want.
Architects are all
that's-
very different. I
Yeah,
don't know if you guys have dealt with them, but I had two. One was horrible and ended up firing them, and the next one was night and day. So, you just never know.
yeah. Yeah, I
And
think,
sometimes you don't know until you get a project also.
yeah, I think getting a recommendation is great, if somebody knows, and then I think they have to have experience. too, so.
Yeah.
So establishing a list of questions.
I'd be curious what Yuba River
Mhm.
staff think about their school.
Their
you know,
design, like what.
Not
they-
just who the designer is, but
Yeah.
how did that work
Yeah,
out?
work
out.
That would be a good question.
Yeah, for
Uh-huh.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's the one that Cheryl sent us, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then didn't Dan say that he had, that he would have possible suggestions for architects as
I
well?
believe that he did. Somebody could reach out to him. So, or
I can-
Kristen. could reach out
Kristen,
to him,
yeah.
or,
Yeah,
What was
Yeah.
Dan's last name again?
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez.
So I will remind Kristen of that.
The
And then
questions are lead.
Yeah, and then if she says no, then she'll report back.
all right.
Don't know about.
Yeah.
if she can't, I can.
Okay. And maybe have her email a list of questions to this committee. That she's gonna ask in case anybody has other questions, or how do you guys wanna develop like the same list of questions that they're ever asking? Do you want her to come up with questions, email them to the committee, and say these are the questions I have in mind, does anybody have anything else they feel is important, or what are your?
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, that's good. I just see people adding.
Yeah,
Like,
I know,
short
I
songs,
know.
Go back and forth, hold it like
Yeah, and
this.
at some point, I think you're gonna do a short, here's a few questions, tell me about what you've done, have you worked with the school before? And then narrow it down.
Yeah.
And then do a longer interview with them, and maybe at that point you have more than just her doing it.
Let's go on a scam away.
Yes. I know.
Oh, yeah, we just, yeah, I think there's some basic questions that
Basic.
start
Yeah.
like, have you built schools
Have you built
before,
schools?
what's an.
What's your availability?
Do you have a?
Yeah.
One we can look at,
Yeah.
that you built, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, not 21 questions.
no.
Yeah, at the
For
first.
sure.
You like long walks.
What is your understanding? Of
That way you're like,
of
"Oh, we have my
Steiner's opinion.
kind of opens
That's
up,
something.
like, everybody's involved. Yeah, plus the person being interviewed has more interaction with each individual person, just kind of puts a different dynamic on it. So that's probably large panel interviews. Yeah, very helpful. So you have your one list, everybody gets the question.
Yeah, that's what we do all the time too. I'm thinking more in terms of like, if we have 5 or more architects, that just like 5 bullet questions
Yeah.
for them to
Yeah.
say,
that's what I was thinking,
have you
like
worked in
6
the area,
questions or
in the
less.
Chico area before, or have you built schools before? Can you give us an example of one that you would, that you're especially proud of, that sort of thing, so.
Mm.
And then what we did with the Measure K, once in 2019, feels like they came and all of the charter leaders were there and they gave a presentation. They were presenting saying, we were deciding who could be used for Measure K at that point. We were still trying to figure out how to do Measure K, so. And then we picked 2 architects that we agreed to work with, and DeWitt was one of them, so.
And that was
So
the
he was interested in
architect
time.
for,
Tim DeWitt was the architect that was approved for Measure
Oh.
K, whose children were
when
at
we were
that
looking
time.
at.
Yeah.
Got it, I was like.
In
what did we just need
2019.
an architect for it? Got it.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
we were just
did it.
looking at
We just
architect, and he came and told us the building was not sinking.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we'd had some people
Got it.
calling
We were
us,
looking at
the
buying
building
this
was sinking,
building.
buying this,
Yeah.
but the building was
Okay.
sinking. He's like, no, it's just,
Oh.
it's just old, yeah.
So if we're just gonna do 5, can we just come up with those questions right now as the committee?
That's what I was almost thinking.
So
That's great.
have
Yeah.
you built a school before, and can you give us an example of one?
So, so
Right.
is that under building design next steps? Is that what this is?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay,
Let's go to
all right.
5.2.
Well, I
Okay.
think we're already on 5.2.
been,
We're just saying,
yeah.
oh, the next step
Yeah.
is to have this, to pick an architect.
To pick up
And here are
architect.
the 5 questions we're gonna answer.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
just wanting to make sure
yeah.
we're,
I wrote down what I heard Susan say. I'll
Yeah.
say back what I heard you say.
Okay.
Do you have history building a school?
Mhm.
Have you worked in the Chico area before?
Mhm.
Are you especially proud of a school or a large project that we could do a walkthrough? And what is your availability?
Yep, I have those 3. Any other?
Availability, I
availability.
think we took the job, they got availability.
Well,
Yeah.
but like some of them could have been, they could be 3 or 6 months out.
Or 3 years out.
Yeah, like to start working on
When
it,
are they
yeah.
available to start working?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to start.
To
What's your
break ground.
availability to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other important questions you feel like?
Well, I think my question with the Chico area, is environmental factors. So we've purchased this land from Dan or we are doing that. I'm not sure how it is zoned, but what is our risk of finding out 4 months from now that the snail population is endangered, and then we're in like 18 months of litigation or something?
We would have had a natural hazard report done on the
Okay.
property before purchasing that tells us if there's any endangered species or something that's gonna be an issue with building on it. So
Okay,
I hope.
so that was a major benefit of this
Well,
lot as
anytime you
opposed
buy
to virgin
anything,
land.
you typically get that,
Mhm.
just coming from a realtor's perspective, so that's a disclosure that usually anytime you buy anything, you do that report, and that report tells you if you're earthquake fault lines, or if you have zoning issues, it's gonna be an issue with building, or if there's protected species like plants, animals, or anything in that area. So I'm gonna assume they got that report, but I don't know, because we have
That would
not
be
seen
part
it
of
at
it.
charter.
That would be part of, I haven't seen it either. That would be part of the escrow.
Yes.
We would
so
have
that
to
should-
have that done. And because he's already like for 5 years had plans to build on that,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should
I-
double check that.
yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
it's
isn't
part of
that why he took that back portion and wanted to do it as a park?
Is
Because of that.
That
and
expectation.
indigenous people and their stake in that.
I don't know if it's something that was mandated, but maybe a feeling, or, just something he wanted to do. I don't know if it's like a requirement, but it is something he wanted to make sure to.
I think, maybe a question about, built to suit or custom design or sustainability of materials. I don't know how to word that,
Mhm.
but
So like, what's your experience with building sustainable, like, or like,
I am thinking like sustainability is important to the
Important to
whole of pedagogy.
Mhm.
And so how do you see yourself doing a kind of design that includes,
Fidelity, safety.
recycling? Yeah, and materials that are,
Is
Right,
the
yeah,
chat
resources.
enabled, so that way we can see, since Amber's part of our committee, so we can see if she has any input in the chat at all.
well, she's listening to us and she just needs to raise her hand. She's
Okay.
not, so,
This one.
So sustainability is
I don't think
important
it's
for a
all-
school.
yeah.
How do you see yourself incorporating that?
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, is that
Mhm.
covered?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is,
Yeah. and
it's
how do
broad
you-
enough.
You guys think that, everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like Dan's architect is gonna nail that out of the water, right? Because
Yeah.
all of Marion Park is designed so, so well in that area.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to compare that with the others.
But that's
That,
the
but I
question.
will say that, there's also been work on some of those buildings over there where they had tenants that were living there and they've had to.
I know all about that.
Yeah, so I'm just. in
So
case those
that-
of you aren't aware of that.
So clearly Dan and his company are not building our building for us.
Yeah,
So it's not like it's his guy, but it's one of the I'm just saying.
The
He's
architect
not
that
building
he's
for us.
used
It's not,
Is, yeah,
he might suggest somebody, I don't know.
that was about during the shutdown, swapping of materials on the construction end to cut corners. That was then
Oh.
illuminated.
I guess with sustainability, I just wanna make sure that we're not cutting corners, so that way we can have a building that is very sustainable for
Long period.
very long time.
That's 4 questions. Do we feel like there's another question that is an important one to ask in just the first initial call? How long have you been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I mean,
there's part of me that wants to know about, just on a design level, like, an element of beauty or aesthetically pleasing or,
Right, what's their forte?
Like, are you more like contemporary, more like that kind of
yeah, how do you put that in
terms?
architecture
Like, what's your
terms?
architectural style?
Yeah.
I'm sure they could draft
or-
different elevations, but it's like there's designers that have an appreciation of beauty at heart and designers that don't, right? And so I'm curious on the craftsmanship.
I
How
think
do
that
you
would
word that?
probably be a difficult question to ask in a first interview. It would be their presentation where we would see that.
Oh,
Do you think beauty is important? Well, of course I think beauty is important. I mean,
Okay.
how are we gonna ask that question? We need to
Yeah.
see what they're
That's good.
doing, what they've done.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Where do you need to start? So that way you can see kind of where they're coming.
Oh, that's a nice rooted question.
So it sounds with the last two, with yours about how long they've been doing it and yours about where they studied. I think a basic, like, who are you?
Yeah,
How long have you been in the business?
yeah.
What's your background? And, I think just that, like, kind of, is this a guy that's just an architect or is he connected to a company? Those kind of just general background questions. Like,
What about one on public school laws, like building?
Like
Code.
Yeah,
Well, if they have previous. They have previous work designing schools. I think they would be familiar with that, but yeah, that is a valid point.
I mean, say we went with a local architect, but they haven't built a school here, and
Yeah.
so my question would be something along the lines, how confident are you in researching and meeting all of the ed codes for a public
well,
school?
what's your experience in addressing the ed codes for public schools? And charters are different from district schools. There's a whole different set of rules.
Mhm.
So what's your experience in building code for schools? Is that?
Yeah, and charter schools in specific.
Yeah,
But I do also think we may be getting too much into detail. I mean, I think those are good things to know. But for our initial, like,
Just filling them out.
yeah, just filling them out, I think we may be getting too much in the weeds.
Okay.
So maybe we don't need a fifth question.
Well, we do have
But
five.
that's-
That would be six.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Have you built a school before? I think with that, you could say, if they say yes, I would say how many.
or
Right.
any of them charter schools
Yeah.
with that.
I have a question.
Oh, Vicky.
Vicky has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if a question for the architect would be something like, what do you think a school needs? Or what's, give us two things that you think are absolutely necessary for a school for.
Yeah.
to open it?
I think like students will have to look at the level their first initial one, but their insight on what their vision is.
Mhm.
They might give you a good idea of who they are as an architect.
Like when doing like a panel interview, for them to do a presentation, amongst the committee.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks, Vicky.
So, have you built a school before? Have you built, and if so, is it any charter schools? An example of one that you're proud of or a large project? Kind of as one question, what is your availability to start? Have you worked in the Chico area before? Sustainability is important to our school. How do you see yourself incorporating that? And then how long have you been an architect? Where did you go to school? Background. That sounds good as a first initial.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I will reach out to Kristen about that. And then we have our task force to start on design, and she can do that. And then we'll regroup August 1st at 6 p.m. Bring it all together.
I'm good.
Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
And then finance is ready to help wherever we can.
All right.
Finance.
For the finance part, it's always fun. You get to pass the buck on that one.
Yeah, I'll make it too crazy, okay, so we can achieve the goal in finance committee. Okay, then adjournment until next meeting.
All right.
Thanks for letting me stop in.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job, Tricia.
Thanks.
Good luck. Am I good to walk down to the meeting? Okay.